This podcast is a member of the Place to Be Nation family. Visit us at placetobenation.com, the only place to be in your pop culture world.
PlayStation Pop Experience. We're back. Hi there. Pop Goes to the Couch returns. Another Marvel show has showed up on Disney Plus. Little mischievous little imp, Loki, the god of mischief, starring Tom Hiddleston, is the latest in the MCU offerings, and we're going to be here to break it down on this very program. We're happy to be back, and let's get the crew in here, get reacquainted, and let's break down this episode. First off, he's not in Madripoor, he's not hanging out at the TVA, he's here, Shawn Kidd. Shawn, how are you?
I'm good. It is great to be back doing this show. I did spend a little bit of time on Jupiter, and what a shitty show that was, so I'm glad we did not do it for this show. But I am very glad to be here with you, gents, to talk about Loki. So good to be back, guys.
Yeah, I thought it was okay, but yeah, I'm kind of like glad we took the break, and because it didn't get renewed. So
and then they decide they're going to create another show out of it after it's just what a ridiculous thing that was. Anyway,
yeah, kind of confusing. We're not here to talk about that, though.
Yep.
Scott Shifflett's here, though, too.
I'm glad the band's back together. I've missed talking to you guys about just nerding out for an hour and a half. I'm happy everyone's here tonight.
I'm happy. I'm happy that you're happy, Scott.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And rounding out the group, Tim Capel. Tim, welcome back to the show.
Yeah, it feels like forever since we've done this, but feels like coming home at the same time. Glad we have a home, unlike the subject of our titular show that we're going to be covering now.
Yes. This is quite the offering that we got here. I'm still trying to figure it out because I don't, like you guys know, I'm just a host. I don't know the comic stuff, so I rely on you guys to educate me as we go through these. So let's kind of just start off before we get into the episode. Let's kind of give. I have some questions for you guys. Actually, we're going to start with Scott. What were your thoughts? You know, now we always end the last show. We ended Falcon and Winter Soldier saying we got Loki next. What are you looking for? We've had some time with trailers and promo stuff. What were you thinking? You know, prior to episode 1, what were your thoughts after seeing what we have seen so far up to that point?
I just, as a rule of thumb, because I think trailers ruin too much, I just watched one trailer, and I watched one trailer for this, and I knew from the beginning that I was in, just because it's MCU and I want to know everything that's going on. And it was real interesting to see what's going to happen with Loki, because last we saw him, he was his quote unquote his self was murdered, but then the 2012 bad guy Loki stole the Tesseract, and I had heard rumors that he was going to be time jumping from different in different parts of history. So I didn't know if we see different parts of history with this, and Marvel just went a different way where we're working with Owen Wilson, who spoiler alert, I really enjoyed in this episode. So hopefully I really enjoyed him as an actor in the mid 2000s rom-com. So hopefully he's on his way back. But yeah, I've learned with these MCU shows, guys, that if you go in thinking something, if you go back and listen to our WandaVision, sorry, I had a brain fart. With our WandaVision shows, that whatever we think, we're going to be wrong. So I just try to go in with as much blank slate as possible.
All right, very good. Tim, in the time between the end of Falcon Winter Soldier and the first episode of Loki, what are your thoughts about what we could be expecting or come to see?
Yeah, I would share Scott's concern that maybe they would give too much away in these trailers sometimes. I didn't really get that sense with Loki, only because I figured this would be more of a character-centric show than it would be a plot-centric show. WandaVision was more of a mystery box type of thing, where it was, it was delving more into the characters that we hadn't seen too much of prior to that starting up, but it was all about figuring out what we're seeing, really, right? And I didn't think that Loki would be that exactly. I figured the way that, in much the way that the MCU likes to put its own spin on these things, that this would be kind of maybe a Marvelized version of like a Doctor Who, which is sort of fitting for what they seem to be setting up. I think my only concern, if I had any, was that they would just proceed as if this was the Loki that we'd always known, like the guy that had so much character development going into like Thor Ragnarok and being killed in Infinity War, making the sacrifice play, that we would just kind of pick up from there and act like none of that happened. But as we'll get into, I thought they did a nice job of resetting his character to where Loki was circa the Avengers in 2012.
All right. Shawn, what are your thoughts between the end of Falcon and Bucky up to last Wednesday?
Well, it's a mix of what both Scott and Tim said. So we learned, like we said, through WandaVision that, and the freaking deplorable comicbook.com, don't read that site ever. Don't believe what people tell you. Because WandaVision, I felt like for me, maybe not so much you guys, I'm guessing, we're going to have this, we're going to have that, we're going to have this. And in the end, it was kind of like we got none of it. So it made actually Falcon and the Winter Soldier a better watch for me because I didn't have any expectations. I don't care what any site said. And I'm kind of the same way with this. I did see the preview. I tend to have issues sometimes with time travel kind of scenarios because they become very confusing and very tropey, and just fundamentally, sometimes they could get a little out of whack. And I don't really like that because comics are always going to these timeline scenarios, even going into the multiverse, Doctor Strange, and things like that. I'm a little concerned. However, what I did like was it was very obvious they were taking Loki from a certain point and putting them in this situation. And yeah, I mean, I read stuff on Owen Wilson and what these characters are going to be, so we knew it was going to be some kind of time travel somewhat. So I was very intrigued. Loki, I think, is one of the underrated parts of the Avengers that isn't talked about enough. And I think it's really cool that they took him from a pretty intricate scene in Endgame and made a TV show out of it, which I really appreciate. So I was looking forward to watching it.
All right. Good. So another question. I'm sure we'll learn more as the series goes along, but what exactly is the TVA? What should we know about the TVA? I know nothing about the TVA going in. Tim, what's the TVA from the comics? And we'll discuss it as we go through, but just going in, what are your thoughts and feelings on the TVA and how it's been portrayed through the comics?
All right, I'll do my best here. So the TVA, or the Time Variant Authority, they come out of Marvel's UK imprint, of all things. Back in the 80s, there was a serialized Captain Britain weekly comic written by Alan Moore, art by Alan Davis, that actually proved to be somewhat influential on the main line of mainstream Marvel comics, American Marvel comics. So they created this concept called the Time Variant Authority, which I gather was kind of borrowed from Doctor Who, kind of pulled from a lot of influences and his Captain Britain stories back then. But anyway, they are, as pretty much the show Loki presents, just these guys who sit outside of time, just these sort of interdimensional beings who have jurisdiction over time travelers. So anytime there's an issue with timelines branching off or new timelines being created when they are not, quote unquote, supposed to be, they will intervene. Now, does that mean they will actually destroy that variant timeline? Not as a given. Sometimes they will actually bring the offender before their court and reprimand them in some way. But we will see they do go to the extreme sometimes of pruning, of actually destroying this variant timeline, which the show Loki kind of gets into. So that was carried, and this is where, if you've ever heard the designation of the main Marvel universe, the core Marvel universe known as Earth 616, which I've always found really obnoxious. but that's just a personal thing. That's where this comes from. There's all these different variant Earths. They're all numbered. That's where you sort of get the concept of the multiverse. And the mainstream Marvel universe that we follow is just numbered 616. But that's kind of neither here nor there. I don't know whether the show will even get into that, or if it will be important. But anyway, this carries over to mainstream Marvel universe. They tie it into kind of an earlier concept, I think from Thor and from the Avengers, of the Time Twisters, which became the Time Keepers, and said that these are the guys sitting over basically at the very top of the Time Variance Authority. And this is very much in keeping with what Marvel Comics likes to do, which is to take an abstract concept such as death or eternity or time or chaos or order, whatever, and personify it, turn it into an actual being that intervenes and interacts with the universe. So that's kind of what the timekeepers are. That's kind of their equivalent for the concept of time in the Marvel universe. And we see that the ways that the TVA kind of pays tribute to them. You see the like three-headed statue in the show. So all that is there. But that is roughly what the TVA are. All of their agents, it's sort of an in-joke within the comics. They look like a particular writer/editor, whose name is Mark,
right?
Yeah, Mark Grunwald. They are actually patterned after his likeness, and I mean, so is Owen Wilson's character in this show. He kind of looks like him, but that is because Mark Grunwald was a big just continuity nerd and sort of enforcer within Marvel Comics. Back when they really cared about that sort of thing a lot more than they do now. He was kind of the dude on staff who would catch little inconsistencies and try to clean up continuity errors around the margins. He just had a reputation for that. He's no longer with us. He died in the mid-90s, but they paid tribute to him at the time through the creation of the TVA within American comics. So just think that just know that it kind of it has a lot of different influences, but ultimately it's just this agency sitting outside of time itself that they're like time cops, basically. If you've ever seen that great Jean-Claude Van Damme film.
That is a great film. I agree.
Yeah.
I'm sure you guys it'll be covered on Popcorn Chicken Salad at some
I was about
point.
to say, tune into Popcorn Chicken Salad if
so they're kind of like akin to like the Watchers or the Eternals, where they're there and they intervene when they have to. Kind of groups. Okay. Sean,
whereas the Watchers don't tend to interfere. Yeah. So it's a really good comparison. Tim actually did an amazing job covering off. You know, they were created in the early 80s and part of the British imprint where they were doing like comics like called Death's Head and things like that. I never got into the British. I never really got into those comics, but I don't know a whole lot about the time variant. Tim covered about what I know in a really good extent. What I think about this show, though, so far is I think it's kind of an easy show. It's like they just don't get into all the lore of all the stuff Tim talked about and keep it simplified the way it kind of is framed in this first episode. I think it's a very easy thing to understand and not get convoluted with all the lore. And I'm hoping that's the route they go because that'll make it a much easier watch for everybody involved.
they use a cartoon, clock basically.
Yeah. All that lore doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things based on what we'll probably talk about tonight because you kind of get it just for it right out of the blue. So,
Scott, are you familiar at all with the TVA before this or?
No, I had heard of it like just a one-offs, but it sounded like I need to sit under the Tim learning tree.
Tim actually was very impressive with that recap because that was a lot. He was pretty spot on. So
Well, I actually read those Captain Britain comics because they're X-Men adjacent. There's a lot of Claremont.
Excalibur and all that
Yeah,
stuff.
took a lot of.
Yeah.
Yep. So I read those, but some of this other stuff, I'm like,
Yeah.
All right, so I have one more question before we get in. What will Loki the series? What will its purpose be or its job? Like WandaVision was kind of like, okay, let's move Wanda's story forward. Let's get her to be the Scarlet Witch. Move into Doctor Strange 2. Falcon and Winter Soldier was like, okay, Cap's gone, the original Cap. How does Sam become Captain America? Let's kind of give Bucky, let's kind of finish his redemption story. So we'll start with you, Shawn. What do you think the purpose or job of Loki the series will be in terms of the MCU? Is it going to lead us somewhere? Is it going to set up something? Because from what I understand, it's already been announced that there will be at least a second season. It could be the first Disney Plus Marvel series we could get. I think I could be wrong, but I think I heard that this will be a couple of seasons at least. So what's Loki going to do? Is it supposed to connect the dots, lead us somewhere? What do you think it's going to do?
Well, I hate to presume because again, that's gotten us in trouble in the past.
Oh yeah.
But I feel like WandaVision definitely set up going into Doctor Strange and what that movie is, the multiverse. And again, if I were to take a guess, I would assume the show is going to set up some of that for us around what the multiverse is, what it looks like. I mean, we're going to talk a lot about variants tonight. So I think this will probably help give some context to the multiverse. I also think ultimately what it might do is play out kind of a redemption story for Loki. Because when we find out what his true mission is at the end of the show, which I thought was a nice little twist, I think ultimately it's going to be Loki and that shades of gray of villain versus hero. I think maybe we'll get a little more defined Loki, which I hope not. I hope we still get kind of that god of mischief, but I also think it'll get him more playing on the good side versus the bad side. That's what I think.
All right. Scott?
I'm going to swing for the fences here. Calling my shot. I think this is going to lead to whatever the big bad is for Phase 4.
Ooh.
I don't know what it is.
Mephisto, confirmed.
Scott drinking the Kool-Aid.
Yeah, I got it off, comicbook.com. This is what I'm reading right now. I don't know who the big bad is because I've heard some rumors there's Kang is supposed to be the bad guy for Ant-Man and Wasp 3. He's a time traveler. We're dealing with time a lot here. I just think we're gonna see. I don't know if I think he just may be like the big bad. I doubt they kill off Kang in an Ant-Man and Wasp movie. No offense to Scott Lang fans out there, but I just think because we've had as you guys were saying with WandaVision, it was for Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness, for Captain America and Winter Soldier. It was for Captain America 4, which got announced shortly after the series finale. So I think this is going to lead into something else because this seems like the most prized MCU show that they've been hyped about. So I don't know if we're going to spin off to a multiverse or some sort where we bring in the X-Men. I'm not sure.
All right. Tim, what are your thoughts on this question?
Yeah, well, it's weird because I had the same question going into Loki because you look at all of these shows even before you've seen them necessarily, and you figure, why do these things exist? Well, primarily to promote the next major MCU vehicle cinematically. Like they're setting up movies or somehow supporting movies. And with WandaVision, the obvious connection there is like Doctor Strange, Falcon and Winter Soldier. Well, we already know we've got some more Captain America coming now. And this one, if anything, I thought was going to be maybe the exception. That would be more standing on its own. Part of that may be just due to the fact that we've already gotten that renewal for Loki for that second season. I know I saw that somewhere. So it's like, well, maybe it won't be just setting up a movie. Maybe this is actually meant to be, unlike the others, this will be more of a continuing story. So I don't know that I'm necessarily thinking, oh, it's going to lead into the next film. If it does, then I mean, obviously we're getting into some multiverse stuff with this time travel, but I also, in my own nerd brain, am thinking, okay, as a variant timeline, the same thing as the multiverse, right? Or is that a different concept? And I kind of don't think the films are going to try to make a distinction just because it would be too confusing to people. It's like almost too confusing for me to even talk about or try to talk about. So maybe we stay away from that. And this is just kind of priming the pump, so to speak. Again, more Doctor Strange stuff. Scott brings up a good point. Kang is obviously a time traveler. Kang is a heavy hitter as far as Avengers villains. I think he's kind of a shit villain, to be honest, but
total shit.
He is though. You have to, let's face it though, like he's in the comics been presented as a big deal. So if the movies are going to use him, I would think they treat him as such, and he does, seem a little bit low profile for just an Ant-Man and Wasp sequel. I think I'd be fine with that if that's the extent of his usage, just again because I don't really like the character. But if they do have bigger things in mind for him, then this is maybe where we see that get started. There's just a very logical connection there. Kang is in the comics one of the few beings who the TVA don't have a lot of jurisdiction over. They tried and failed a few times to kind of keep him in line. So, I mean, there is that connection. When is Ant-Man and the Wasp 3? Is that next year or the year after?
2023.
Okay, so we've got a little time. So if not this season of Loki, maybe next season, if they're going to go there. But yeah, is Kang going to be the next big bad? I sort of hope not, but yeah, I mean, I could see it.
All right. Yeah, we got a lot ahead. I mean, there have been a lot of She-Hulk announcements in the last week. So look, the pandemic sucked, and we're still in it. And now we're starting to come out. Things are good, but now we're going to actually, have quite the next couple of years with a lot of material. All stuff that we had supposed to have spread out over time is going to be compact, and I think it's it's kind of like the Monday Night Wars of wrestling. It's like the fans are going to win in the end. Because we're just going to have so much content, and it's going to be great. So
yeah, I went to the movies the other day, and there's 4 Marvel movies coming out between now and December.
Jesus,
crazy. So yeah, a lot to unpack.
Mm-hmm. And we'll be here to do it. Damn it! All right.
Even on Shang-Chi.
and the triangles, yes.
Yes.
All right, here we go. So this episode number 1 of Loki season 1 is called "Glorious Purpose." Great title. And trying to just get my notes up here, and my computer is being stupid. Sorry. Nothing like live pod to mess you up here. Here we go. I got it finally. All right. So the episode starts off in New York City in 2012 at the Avengers Tower. The Avengers, minus the Hulk, take Loki and the Tesseract down the elevator to the lobby. The future Ant-Man and Tony Stark try to steal the Tesseract, and it ends up knocked over to Loki. Loki grabs it, teleports away like we saw in Avengers Endgame. In the Gobi Desert, Loki ends up falling into the sand after materializing in midair and falling down. Several local tribesmen approach him, and Loki gets up on a rock outcropping and declares who he is. A portal opens, and 3 time variants authority police, Minutemen as they're called, come through it. They find the nearby Tesseract, and Loki goes over and tells them not to touch it. Another officer, Hunter B-15, comes through and declares Loki a variant. B-15 arrests Loki on behalf of the TVA for crime against the sacred timeline. Loki isn't impressed and tells him that it's their last chance. B-15 hits him in the mouth with her baton, slowing him down to 1/16th speed and puts a collar on him. When Loki collapses, the officers pick him up, and B-15 tells the other officer to reset the timeline. As he plants a reset charge and activates it, B-15 picks up the Tesseract, takes it and Loki to the TVA base. Loki tries to run, but B-15 uses a remote and the collar it controls to reset Loki back to where he was. He tries to run again, and B-15 brings him back again. So this was the beginning of this episode. We get our good friend Tom Hiddleston back as Loki. We set up where the series is picking up the action. And Sean, what did you think of this opening scene?
I actually enjoyed it quite a bit. I like that we started right off from the Avengers scene, him landing in the desert. Him getting hit was awesome because the slow-mo they did on his facials, on his mouth, I thought were really funny. Because he's still being that little smart-ass god of mischief with them. And yeah, I mean, he comes out hot right out of the gate, and we don't waste any time in setting up where we're going with this. So I really thought it was a really cool, fun open.
All right. Scott, your thoughts on the opening of the episode?
I agree with what Sean said. And one thing I did also like is that they kept in, like, one of my favorite parts of Avengers is them kind of being dicks to the Hulk and making him take the stairs instead of the elevator, saying the occupancy has been fit. So I do enjoy that. And it's nice to see, like, immediately, like, we're not spending the whole first episode with the TVA just, like, hunting Loki down for them to work together. It's like he's caught immediately and shown that he might not have any power with them, which is shown even more in this episode.
And he has no idea who they are or what they do. Tim, what do you think of the opening?
Yeah, it does a good job of establishing kind of the extent of the TVA's reach and their power as well. They find Loki right away. I don't know where he thought he was going when that Tesseract portal opened, but they catch up with him in very short order and whip his ass. Like, I mean, this is an Asgardian god. We know how capable he is, especially coming off of that first Avengers film, and they just don't break a sweat bringing him in. And then we get the timeline reset. How does that work exactly? It looks like a time bomb, if you will. So we don't really see what that looks like, but I have a theory as to why. That I don't know. We'll see this again as the episode progresses. So I guess I'll save it. I'll keep that one up my sleeve for now.
Yeah, he ends up in the Gobi Desert of all places. I'm trying, like, it's just that somewhere that's the furthest away from New York in the everything that happened. I don't know if that's any significance there. But okay, so continuing on. So we're at the TVA now. B-15 has a clerk, Casey, enter the Tesseract into evidence. Loki tells Casey to be careful with it as B-15 leads him off and shoves him into a cell with a robot. The robot disintegrates Loki's Asgardian clothing. That is fine, Asgardian leather, he tells it. And then a trapdoor drops him into an office below. Loki is clothed in a gray prison jumpsuit, and another clerk at a desk shoves a pile of paper at Loki and tells him that it's to verify everything Loki has ever said. Loki then says another word, and he keeps going on. This is a gag we did see in one of the previews. Loki finally signs and falls through another trapdoor, and there is a clerk there that has him testify that he's an organic being and possesses a soul. Once Loki does, the clerk tells him to move through the archway that will melt him from the inside if he is, in fact, a robot. The archway takes a picture of Loki's temporal aura, and a guard tells Loki to take a ticket. There's one other prisoner who arrived when Loki did, and Loki takes the ticket and on the guard's orders. As Loki moves through the barriers, an animated presentation with Miss Minutes tells him that he's at the TVA, and it's her job to catch Loki up before he stands trial for his crimes. She explained that there was a multiversal war and hundreds of warring timelines, and then 3 timekeepers reorganized the universe into a single timeline, the sacred timeline. Now the timekeepers preserve the proper flow of time for everyone and everything, but variants veer off the creative path, people like Loki. They create a nexus event which could lead to another multiversal war. The timekeepers created the TVA to deal with variants, setting time back on its proper path. Since the variant doesn't have a place in the timeline anymore, they have to stand trial for their offenses. The other prisoner protests, and a guard disintegrates him because he doesn't have his ticket. Loki quickly produces his. So, Scott, what do you think of our intro to the TVA?
All right, Andy, take a breath. So I'm going to talk for a little bit here. I thought it was hilarious. Like, Loki did a great job of, like, comedy right there with, like, you know, it was like, don't burn this. This is Asgardian leather. And he's, like, burned down, like, till he's naked. And then, like, say everything you ever said. And he starts talking, and another page prints out, and he has to sign the page. and he just has to do it, and then he has a whole existential crisis when it's like go through this like metal detector and it'll prove if you're a human. He's like, but what if I'm a robot and I don't know? And like I just thought that was so funny. Like, it's like a serious moment, but like Tom Hiddleston's just doing great as a comedy. Because like to go off on a little bit, I've been reading Avengers Disassembled, and as I've told you guys in our group chat, but in it, Loki is like, for the Thor's like subplot, he's kind of an asshole. And with this, like, they completely changed the Loki character in my eyes from being like this just asshole to like he's more of an anti-hero. I know he's been an anti-hero since, the second Thor movie, but he was the full bad guy in the first Avengers, but like, they made him more of an anti-hero in the Dark World, and especially Ragnarok. So they're definitely treating him as that now. Like, he's not afraid to laugh at himself and everything. And I did like the little Miss Minutes telling us what's happening with that. It was very like dumbed down, which is, as Tim was explaining the TVA, I was getting confused. So imagine like, Joe Schmo would be watching and like, what the hell's going on? I like how they were talking about the different timelines, but what it did think is that, like, I'm going to disagree with you, Tim, with you don't think, like, we'll get a multiverse. I think with them saying a multiversal war and hundreds of warring timelines, I think we may see, like, other timelines with this. And I think that's what, like, we might have the season 1 cliffhanger of, like, oh, my God, there's actually, like, the TVA's just been wrong. And there's been these actual different timelines.
Yeah, I could see it.
Well, Tim, you're up.
Yeah, a lot to get into here. This was a big info dump sequence, but pretty well needed, I think, early on. I'm glad we sort of got it out of the way. But the presentation, I thought, was just great. Again, the Miss Minutes, shitty, like, 60s cartoon, and just the entire look of the TVA offices. This is another thing that I personally just really love. I talked about how in the Marvel universe, you take these abstract concepts and expressions and give them some life, some humanity. And I also love when they put a bureaucracy around it. So I'm thinking of like the interdimensional afterlife of Beetlejuice, right? Which is just this really shitty, awful waiting room that all these ghouls are sitting in. And it really just reminded me of that. And I just really, I love that sort of thing. It makes me think this is the fate that kind of awaits us all, sort of thing. But that I just got a kick out of. And yeah, what Scott brought up, Loki's just sort of existential crisis, going through the juiced up metal detector and saying, do many people not realize they're robots? Which it's a great question, honestly. It's a very valid question. So we're seeing him get humbled, even though he's kind of still in that 2012 Avengers mode of I will conquer you all, and I'm never more than a moment away from a monologue. He's being put in his place and sort of turning more into the Loki that we recognize, but they're not losing sight of the fact, that he's not there quite yet. But we're pulling up on that character, and I don't know, some of the revelations that we get are kind of some earth-shattering reveals that make you question sort of what we thought we knew about the MCU. There's more of that to come as well. But I'm like, yeah, this whole sacred timeline business, is that true? Are they just telling people that, or is this something that we're really supposed to run with? And just some of this, I don't know, like, isn't Captain America a variant now? The fact that he returned all the, Infinity Gems or Infinity Stones, but then stuck around to make babies with Peggy or whatever, like, wouldn't they have a problem with that, you would think? But then again he came back over, and they they talk about how everything that the Avengers did, well, that was supposed to happen, so we didn't get on their asses about it. And it's like, I don't know, like on a larger, from a bigger picture standpoint, it seems to be what they're suggesting is there is no free will in the universe / multiverse. Things are only by our design, and the way that you are is just the way that you are no matter what across all timelines. And if you step out of line, that's where we come in and basically nuke your ass. And I don't know, it's a pretty heavy philosophical question that they're putting out there, and I think that's going to have big implications throughout this series and maybe for the future of the MCU.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I loved Miss Minutes, voiced by Tara Strong. And if you look on her IMDb, she's done like every cartoon, 600 something credits. So most notably that I noticed was Timmy Turner from Fairly Odd Parents, which is something my kids used to watch. But
she was Batgirl back in the day.
Yeah,
right?
she also did Harley Quinn a lot. She had voiced Scarlet Witch on Superhero Squad, which is another fun show. It had a lot of great humor in it. So Sean, what do you think of the intro to the TVA?
I think Tim and Scott covered it well. I thoroughly enjoyed this. Again, what I like about this show so far is that it doesn't waste time getting into it, and even gives you context around the TVA and the timekeepers, and it just gives you that whole mythology. I like the Miss Minutes. It reminded me of, and Andy, you would probably remember this movie more than anybody. You ever see the movie Johnny Dangerously?
Yes.
So do you remember the cartoon that they played where they were talking about protecting your testicles, and they do that little 60s cartoon? That's what this reminded me of. It was popping me, and not many people would know that scene, but I love this, and I love that Loki's kind of, he's been put in his place. Like, he really doesn't, like, it's just, there's so much great about this. And again, the one thing I'm concerned about, Tim brought up, was they immediately excused what the Avengers did. And then there's a scene later on that makes me question everything we've known about the Marvel movies, about maybe some certain gems that we might see. So it's almost like a huge mind, they screw with your mind in this show so much. And that's where I get a little scared when we start getting into the time stuff and what matters and what doesn't matter, and makes you think that this wasn't important, because I don't like that stuff. And that's why fundamentally time travel for me is always kind of it's a fine line. So we'll just see how it plays out. But so far, so good. I've liked it quite a bit so far.
Yeah, it also kind of reminded me also from Dodgeball, when they had the Patches O'Houlihan.
Yes.
It gave that like 50s, 60s, so you got the tension, like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
All right, so continuing on, in a church in the Ain province in France in 1549, TVA agent Mobius examines several dead Minutemen. Another Minuteman informs Mobius that when they arrive to investigate the Nexus event, someone had killed them. Mobius notes that the stab wounds appear consistent with the others on dead Minutemen, and the reset charge is now gone. A Minuteman notes that this is the 6th attack in the last week, and a young local boy comes in. Mobius approaches the boy and asks him if he saw who killed the Minutemen. The boy points at a nearby painted window showing the devil, and Mobius says that the devil is afraid of them, and they'll put the boy back where he belongs. The boy smiles, revealing blue tainted teeth, and Mobius asks what caused it. In response, the boy takes out a stick of blue gum, and Mobius realizes the devil gave it to the boy. The Minuteman warns Mobius that the timeline is near a red line and they have to go. Mobius has the boy go outside as the Minutemen set the reset charge, and a clerk portals in and shows Mobius the file on Loki, and Mobius says, saying that he'll want to see it. All right, so Tim, this is our first introduction to Agent Mobius investigating a crime scene, a little CSI-esque here. So what do you think of this intro, and what the kind of what's going on here? Why is Mobius here in France in 1549?
Well, first of all, he's there in France in 1559 because Mephisto confirmed, Big Bad revealed, just like that, called it. So we should mention that I think it was the showrunner, I don't know who it was exactly, somebody in connection with this show actually said recently in an interview, we're not doing Mephisto in this series. So stop posting your stupid ass fucking fan theories.
Thank God.
And I was sort of, on the one hand, I'm like, spoilers in a way, but also thank you, because I'm really sick of this. Like, you got us wound up for WandaVision, and we were all in a state of hysteria because of the drought, the MCU drought, of course. So I get it that time around, but let's not repeat history here. This is dumb. And I guess I'm just glad that and I hope that they were telling the truth. I mean, there's always the possibility that they just lied to us. I mean, there is going to be Mephisto. They just said no because they didn't want to answer the question. But I'm assuming that this truly does mean no Mephisto in this series, and we can stop talking about it before we've ever started. The demon, the devil in the stained glass, right away I thought, well, that's just Loki, because he's got the horns when Loki wears his crown of lies helmet and is dressed in green robes, much as we've seen our Loki dressed that way, certainly in 2012 from the Avengers. I'm like, okay, so what we're going to be dealing with is the big bad of this series is yet another variant Loki, probably someone who's further along in his personal timeline and has somehow escaped, come back, and is now wreaking havoc throughout the multiverse for his own ends. Like, I sort of felt like that's where we were going, and then at the end of this episode, they kind of just go ahead and reveal it. So I sort of appreciated that they didn't try to present that very obvious, hint as a true mystery. And I'm sure there's much more to it as we go, but they're not treating us like we're idiots and watching this show. So I'm good with that. Agent Mobius, this introduction here, I like the way that Owen Wilson plays this character. And I like that we saw sort of almost a moment of regret or sadness as he does what the TVA does with these variant timelines, and he leaves here again the time bomb, I'm calling it, before making his departure. And I think that, look, I'll just say it. I think that these devices, they're nukes essentially that destroys the entire universe that's created from this timeline. I don't think it's, we've seen the way that the time stone works, where it's just kind of like pressing the rewind button, right? It just rolls everything back. I don't think it's doing that. I think it's literally destroying and killing everything and everyone in this variant timeline. And it's like this global, this universal genocide, basically, that they feel like they are justified in doing because, well, all these people, all these beings aren't supposed to exist. Therefore, too bad, so sad, you got to go. And that's what I think is really up with them, and that's why I think they haven't shown what we see when the time bomb actually goes off.
Oh.
So, anyway.
Yeah. All right. Shawn.
Wow. So that theory, I had not thought of that, Tim, and that sets up a whole nother twist possibly at the end of this show about what Loki is going after and what that might mean in the end. So you just got me thinking on that. So anyway, yeah, I again, they brought up I saw it online, comicbook.com, with the Mephisto's in this, and the theories are going crazy for Mephisto. Now, I know it wasn't done on purpose that was done, but I do like in the end what it does mean, because obviously if the kid is pointing to it, I mean, most people think, oh, it's Mephisto, but in the end we find out what it means, and it makes total sense. But yeah, I like that we're setting up. We have a serial killer that's going on in these timelines, and I think that sets up the kind of the pace of the show and the mystery for the rest of the show. And as we go on, we'll find out what that means for Loki. And I also like what Owen Wilson is doing with the character. Just good stuff. I like a good serial killer mystery, like you said, kind of like Law and Order. And I'm gonna get me some time killing, so I'm into it. I'm digging it.
All right, Scott.
Yeah. Just I thought it was a nice introduction, like because it shows that they can all speak all these different languages. To like, they don't really blend in because obviously the clothes are different. But I mean, Tim, that's pretty dark. Your theory with that. I hope.
I think it makes sense. Tim's got me on it right
well,
now.
and the thing is, like, what's functionally the difference between just winding this timeline back up? I mean, you're still taking all these people out of existence versus blowing them up. Well, I mean, one is just a lot more violent than the other.
And a variant's already happened at this point, so you have to fix it even if you take the variant out of it. It's already happened.
Yeah. I just think that they're going for the more violent option, which is it has nothing to do with any kind of time shenanigans. It's literally a weapon of mass destruction that wipes out.
Basically, the TVA is just doing mass killing, homicide, and different
mass
timelines.
extinction.
It's amazing. What a great theory.
What I think it does, Tim, as much as I would like for that to be right, it's just what I think is like where the time variant is, like in that room, how it was changed. It like goes back in time and like acts like it never happened. Yeah, that's what I think. Like now yours would be but yours would be something that I can also see because these shows have been always about subverting like who's really the bad guy, but obviously not with Captain and Winter Soldier. But we saw it with the with WandaVision because Wanda sort of was the bad guy, as was Catherine Hahn's character. So this would be perfect if you find out that the TVA, because they definitely seem like smug dicks, as we see with all benevolent rulers. Like the Eternals, I think are smug dicks, and I think like going to DC, like the Guardians of like Ganthet, I think they're dicks with the Green Lantern. Sean, I know you'll shit on me for that, but they're smug dicks as well. But it wouldn't surprise me with that, and that's a very good theory that I haven't even seen anywhere, Tim. So good job.
Yeah, there's nothing worse than a smug dick, I gotta tell you. All right, so B-15 brings Loki into a courtroom, and Judge Ravonna Rensselaer says that he's been charged with numerous sequence violations. Loki says that a god doesn't plead and says that the Avengers are the one who travel through time. Mobius comes in, takes a seat as Loki tells Ravonna, I don't know how to say her name, that she should give him a task force to go after the Avengers. She says what the Avengers did was supposed to happen and Loki escaping was not, according to the Timekeepers. Loki said that he should talk to the Timekeepers, but Ravonna says that they are busy dictating the proper flow of time. And when he tries to teleport away, Loki discovers that his powers don't work. She tells him that magic powers don't work, and the TVA finds him guilty and sentences him to be reset. As the Minutemen try to take Loki away and Mobius approaches the bench, Ravonna warns Mobius that what he's thinking is a bad idea, and if anything goes sideways, it's on him. Mobius takes him to his office via a balcony overlooking the majestic TVA base. They then take an elevator down, and Mobius introduces himself and explains that he's taking Loki somewhere they can talk, and they both know that Loki loves to talk. Mobius gets a baton from a guard and leads Loki into his office. Loki tries to attack him, and then Mobius then uses a remote to move Loki back to where he started. He has Loki sit down and then explains that he specialized in the pursuit of dangerous variants, and Loki isn't one of them. If Loki answers his questions honestly, then maybe Mobius can give Loki something he wants. So this is our first interaction between Mobius and Loki. We start to move a little bit forward. Sean, what do you think of this part?
I dug this. I like the part where Loki was trying to use his powers and they just petered out on him, and he realized that his god powers mean shit here. I also like that you get clarity on what Mobius really is, and he goes after the super dangerous variants, which sets up, what's his interest in Loki? Why does he want to take ownership in this? And there's obviously a reason for that. And immediately I figured there was a connection to what was going on with what we saw in that church and Loki that's going to set this up. But yeah, this is all good stuff. I think this is going to be one of those partnerships that we're going to enjoy. Like, if we go back and watch movies and tandems that work together in the comedy, I think there's a lot of good that could come out between these two working together, because Owen Wilson and Hiddleston are both good at, they can do comedy, they can do drama, they can do everything. And I'm looking forward to this interaction and how it plays out. So yeah, I'm still rolling with this show. I'm liking it quite a bit.
Yeah, it's one of Owen Wilson's strengths is talking, and and having that tone and that very
Yes.
friendly, just the banter, and that was quite the CG little like city or whatever you want to call it
Yes.
at TVA. It was very cool looking.
Yeah, it's like and for those that don't know, I almost feel like he's kind of a time Constantine. I guess would that make sense, Tim?
Yeah, it took me
Yeah.
a minute to. Yes, I totally get that.
Yeah,
All right, Scott. what are
Time
your-
Constantine, I like it.
I'm Constantine.
All right.
Time Constantine. Yeah, it's his name.
Okay. All right. Scott.
Just echoing off what Shawn said, I do think that Mobius and Loki had great chemistry, and definitely agree. Like, it's gonna be like something we enjoy. Like, we enjoy like the buddy stuff in like these Marvel movies. Like, we just saw it with Captain Winter Soldier. Thor, Iron Man, and Captain America had like the nice little buddy comedy thing. And I think we're gonna have the same thing here with the added twist of them investigating a mystery.
All right. Tim.
Yes, and also with the added twist of Time Constantine holding all the cards and knowing a lot more than Loki, and that we, the viewers, know as well. So I'll be interesting to see how he plays his hand as this thing progresses, and they'll probably drip feed out some of these subsequent reveals, like my big fan theory, if you can call it that. It's certainly one that I think is a few episodes down the line. But I don't know. I think we'll get there. This is also where we have the Judge character, who I really like that. I mean, I talked about Beetlejuice earlier in the waiting room. This sort of made me think of the Judge and The Good Place, if you ever watched that.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent
Oh
series.
God, Maya Rudolph was phenomenal
Hysterical.
as a judge. I love her so much.
Yeah. And this Judge, a little bit more serious, a little bit more focused than Maya Rudolph's Judge from The Good Place, but still sort of same idea. And we get that reveal about, well, the Avengers did what they were supposed to do as the sacred timeline ordained. I don't know. I sort of had some issues with that in the same way that Shawn did. I still want to give the show the benefit of the doubt that that's maybe baked into what the show is, like how sort of arbitrary the TVA are and how they exercise their authority. Like, they wield this tremendous power and they think that they're protecting the timeline, but really they're just sort of throwing their weight around. And that's where I think we're headed ultimately with them being sort of the bad guys who think that they're doing the right thing for the right reasons. But anyway, that's really more speculation on my part. The scene with the take a number scene is, I think, really great. With the one guy who refuses and finds himself getting quote unquote reset, which is burned out of existence, and Loki throwing a fit at first, but ultimately taking the number, then scrambling to find it. Just really good comedy there. Just the setup and the payoff is just good stuff in that scene. So I really enjoyed this one.
All right.
But also, Tim,
Yep.
when that guy goes, why should I take a number? This isn't a deli.
Right.
It just popped me so much.
Well, and think about it too. When they stuck him with the hot poker basically, and he disintegrated. What did they call that? Resetting, right?
Yes.
So they use that term when they are resetting the variant timeline.
Correct. Yes.
So it makes me think they're doing that, the equivalent of that, to the timeline itself. Just through the consistency of the language that they're using.
Yeah, makes sense. All right. Starting with his first question, Mobius asks Loki what he'll do if he returns. Loki says that he'll reclaim his throne, and Mobius wonders why someone with so much range just wants to rule. Mobius then plays a film of some of Loki's greatest hits. The agent points out that for someone born to rule, Loki tends to lose a lot. It might even be in his nature. When Loki knows that he killed Coulson, Mobius reminds him that the Avengers united to avenge Coulson's death at Loki's hands. Mobius asks Loki if he enjoys hurting people, and Loki insists that he's a liberator. The agent then says that Loki is good at doing awful things and getting away, and plays the film of Loki posing as Mr. Cooper, a passenger on a jetliner, hijacking the plane, jumping out with a bag of money. Heimdall teleports Loki as he falls away as he falls. Loki tries to leave, disgusted with the conversation, and Mobius rewinds Loki back to his chair. Loki asks Mobius what he wants, and Mobius says that he wants Loki to be honest about why he does what he does. Unimpressed, Loki says that the TVA is an illusion conjured by the weak to inspire fear. He insists that his choices are his own, and Mobius shows Loki a clip of him dominating a crowd in Berlin. Loki insists that when he has ultimate power, it will be because of what he did, not because it was supposed to happen or because the TVA allowed it to happen. He dismisses the TVA as a footnote in his ascent. All right, so this is a lot here in a little amount of time. Scott, what do you break down here?
Well, I enjoyed that we find out that Loki was DB Cooper, and the reason why he done it is because he lost a bet to Thor. I thought that was pretty funny. And I do love seeing like the greatest hits that we see of Loki. It shows that, you know, he did take a lot of L's, as they say, and Loki doesn't like talking about that because it tells the truth, and he's always hiding from the truth. And we see coming up what he really cares about, which is actually kind of shocking.
All right, Tim.
Yeah, Loki does take a lot of L's, and there's some suggestion throughout this scene by Mobius that it's because that is Loki's fundamental nature, that he is just preordained to always lose. That's just his role in the universe / multiverse ? And Loki dismisses it, but it goes back to that idea that the TVA don't really have any kind of regard for free will. They just don't seem to believe in it, and don't seem to think that it has any place in the world. Now, that seems pretty consistent to me with Loki's worldview, especially going back to 2012 Avengers Loki, whose whole shtick was, let me rule you. You will be much happier once you've relinquished your freedom, that this is a burden for you, really. That the world will be much more at peace if there's no such thing as freedom. And he's kind of singing a little different tune when confronted with that by these bureaucratic dickheads in the TVA. So I don't know. We may be seeing Loki round a bit of a corner here and singing a different tune when it comes to his own thoughts on freedom and free will, particularly. So I kind of like that scene, and just the spin that it puts on his character. We get kind of a helpful recap of Loki's history for folks who maybe aren't like us and have followed all these movies. So that was probably, it felt a little tedious, but was probably needed, I guess, just for the sake of the show. The DB Cooper bit was, I don't know, it was fun, but I don't know, a little bit forced at the same time. It's funny, I remember seeing that like in some of the previews, and the way they presented it made it seem like it was some kind of like weird time caper that would maybe be an episode of the show, some kind of adventure he has with the TVA, but really, it's just a prank that that they do when he and Thor are in good graces. And I don't know, that was pretty funny how it's just such a throwaway gag, and the way that it was shown in the previews made you think it was going to be maybe more of a larger component of this series.
All right. Shawn.
Yeah, it's kind of a dick move to basically call Loki a loser god, it's pretty accurate, right? It seems like Loki's whole lifespan was just losing constantly. Tim, the more Tim talks and the more I think through this, I think there's some more there's more stuff, the twist coming up with this with the timekeepers and this whole crew here. I'm kind of feeling what Tim is spinning here. I did enjoy the back and forth. I did love the discussion. I was exactly like Tim. Okay, so you have 6 episodes of this show. And I think we get to a point, and we're going to get into it, where I feel like half of the first episode is all stuff we've already seen. And it is tedious, and it might be necessary, but honestly, I got news for you. If you haven't seen Loki in any other Avengers film, why the hell are you watching the show to begin with? And why do I need to spend half of the show that has only 6 episodes seeing stuff I've already seen? That was one of my biggest issues with this whole entire episode, just to be clear. But yeah, so again, this is just kind of, and I also did like that he asked Loki if he'd like to kill, because that does play out into the end game of this episode, actually, because it's kind of him probing the psyche of Loki, which made sense in the end, I thought.
All right. So Mobius explains that if Loki hadn't required a Tesseract, he would have been taken to a cell in Asgard. The agent explains that the TVA can see Loki's future, and in the film it shows Loki's mother Frigga confronting Loki, and then Loki sending the Dark Elves to kill Frigga. Loki insists that Mobius is lying, and Mobius tells him that it's the proper flow of time, and it happens again and again. He asks again if Loki enjoys hurting people, and Loki throws his chair at him in a fury. He Mobius rewinds Loki back to where he was sitting, but the chair isn't there, so Loki falls on the floor. He then tells Loki that he was born to cause pain and suffering and death, and that's how it always will be, so that others can achieve their best versions of themselves. He helps Loki up, and B-15 comes in and asks Mobius what he's doing. He said that he's doing his job, and says that they have a situation. She says that they have a situation. The agent tells Loki to stay put and leaves with B-15. Outside, B-15 tells Mobius that talking to a variant is a mistake. She says that they've lost another Minuteman unit, and Mobius goes back and discovers that Loki has escaped and stole the time rewinder remote from him. Loki returns to where he was and spots Casey wheeling a cart. Mobius, B-15, and a squad of Minutemen search for Loki. Loki slips into a room with Casey's desk, grabs the worker, and shoves him down. The Asgardian tells Casey to give him the Tesseract. Casey opens his desk drawer and gives Loki the Tesseract. There are dozens of Infinity Stones in the drawer as well. When Loki sees them, Casey tells him that they got a lot of them, and some of the clerks use them as paperweights. Shocked, Loki wonders if the TVA is the greatest power in the universe. B-15 comes in. Loki uses the twister to twist himself away. B-15 and their men continue to search for Loki. All right, so Tim, this is we get Loki seeing he unknowingly caused his mother's death. Also, we hear that there's another Minuteman attack, and he finds a way to get on the loose in the TVA, and apparently you can pick up Infinity Stones at your local TVA gift shop. So, all right, Tim. So break down this part of the episode.
Well, this is a lot of information in a very short amount of time for our Loki to process. Getting interrogated by Agent Mobius here, and seeing the death of his mother. I mean, he's shook after that, right?
Yep.
And we're not sure exactly what Mobius is getting at by questioning him over and over, do you like hurting people? And I'm not even sure myself. I don't know. I almost wonder if Mobius himself is somewhat of a wild card within the TVA, if his ideas maybe clash with their overriding philosophy, and he's, I don't know, maybe having some doubts about their mission and his place within what the TVA ultimately, what their goals and objectives are. But I guess that's more to come. Then, Loki on the loose here, finding that drawer full of Infinity Stones. So, I mean, he's now in a place where he's like, okay, my mom is dead, and the great power that I've worked to achieve is literally within arm's reach, but absolutely meaningless because nothing more than trinkets in a drawer, and he feels now so very small in the universe. And he's just a defeated, broken man after this scene. And I felt a little bit broken after that drawer came open and we saw those Infinity Stones, because this is casting doubt on everything we thought we knew about what great powers of the universe, of the multiverse within the MCU really are. If they're so casually discarded, and just this crappy bureaucracy, the TVA, if they're the ultimate authority, what does that really mean? Is there even a greater power yet to come that's sitting on top of them? I mean, where does it end really? But yeah, it's a lot. I don't know. Like we're moving through the phases now of the MC. This you're on to phase 4, and I guess you've got to keep up in that ante, right? You can't just keep going back and replaying your greatest hits. And I guess in the name of progress, I'm for it. But man, that's a lot to lay on the viewer right there in a very just sort of throwaway scene.
Yeah. Well, it could be one man's trash, one man's treasure type thing where we think gold is the most valuable thing, but then there are people like, yeah, it's just another metal.
We've got them all over the place.
Yeah. Also, I believe during this scene, during this sequence, around the 34-minute mark, people see in the background a Minuteman bring a woman through a portal, and a lot of people think it looks a lot like Peggy Carter. I don't know if you noticed that part, Tim.
Oh yeah, a little bit. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Man, if they grab Peggy, then what else haven't we seen?
I know. What are we doing here? All right, Shawn. Now, I'm sure this is a scene where you were talking about where you had issues with it.
Yeah, let's be clear. They call the Infinity Stone paperweights. And this is where the time travel shit really gets to me, because we have spent 20 some films invested in a film that ultimately plays out with these Infinity Stones. And now we're just going to have it in some, like Tim said, throwaway scene on a TV show on Disney Plus, make us question everything we thought we knew for 20 fucking films. It's a great minds. And it really kind of what it does is it puts in perspective, holy shit, how powerful are these people? Like and it also begs the question, if they are these powerful people, why didn't they get involved with what happened with Thanos when Thanos basically took away half the world? Right. So there's so many questions I have going on in my head. They trade these Infinity Stones like it's that, yet these stones were the reason why half of humanity went away. It's like, I'm so confused, and I don't know if I'm angered, if I'm intrigued, what the fuck. I don't know how to feel, and that's.
Don't you think they'd have an opinion on the Time Stone?
Yeah, that's my point.
It's the Time Stone. Maybe they don't give a shit about the Power Stone or the Mind Stone, but one of them seems like it would be more under their purview than others.
but Jesus Christ, there's a whole desk of these things, and they called the stones a freaking paperweight. And they caused like in our timeline that we know about Marvel, they wiped out half the fucking universe. It's like a big mind fuck, Andy. It's like, I don't know how to feel about it. That's really where I'm at. I
think it's designed to do that too. It's like,
but it is, and it worked.
Yeah, it's what you thought you knew, but wait.
I'm glad you invested these 50 hours of Marvel films to really say, hey, these are just paperweights and they mean shit. It's like, come on, really?
Well, yes, it happens in all walks of life. So, yeah.
Part of me is impressed with it. Part of me is angry, and I don't know which one's winning right now.
Well, while Shawn fights his inner battle.
Yes.
Scott, what are your thoughts?
So, like, we learned something very important is that you thought that maybe he didn't care about, Frigga, but we do see that he did care because like he throws the chair through like that little high def TV that they have. You see that he's really upset, like, losing his emotions, and like we see like more loss that he'll see because he'll see his whole life. Sorry to get ahead, but I just think that's important because what it does, it catches Loki up to speed, because I was going to be pissed if we spend half the time like with just dickhead Loki from the beginning, but it brings like Loki up to speed that we all knew and loved with this. So I enjoy that. I do think like I personally think with them saying like the Infinity Stones are like paperweights, people are like making it out more than it is. I think it means like Marvel like having a poking fun and saying they don't really matter anymore. They move past, so they won't be like a plot device like to be used. Hopefully again, because I know that the Infinity Stones get used a lot in like current, like not current day comics, but it seems like it's like a plot device that they can use to like, oh, we need to make a comic event this summer. Let's bring back the Infinity Stones again. What's Adam Warlock doing with the Infinity Stones this time? I think they're doing it like that. I'm equating it to like the Phoenix Force, which I feel that the Marvel Comics uses as a crutch every once in a while. So I think they're just doing it as that.
They definitely way wore their welcome out with the Infinity Stones in the comics.
I would like to think that's the case, and if it is, shame on me for getting worked up about it, but I've been played before, so we'll see. I like your outlook on that, Scott, though. It's actually good.
It doesn't take much to get you worked up sometimes, though.
Yeah, you're right. Sometimes.
You know what? Something else that just kind of occurred to me, and it's not just this series, but in thinking about the way that they presented it, we got some flashbacks to Thor: The Dark World, right? And Frigga's death was pretty instrumental to Loki's motivations in this show. We also got that kind of extended scene revisiting the Dark World, Thor: The Dark World, and Avengers Endgame. And it almost feels like the MCU is now punishing people for thinking Thor: The Dark World is a shitty movie.
It is. It is,
but they're also making it kind of inescapable now. It's like, haha, this is the one you think sucks so much, but we're going to keep calling back to it over and over just because you guys are being such dicks about it. I just think that's I don't think that's really what they're doing, but it's funny to me that they do keep, somehow it all keeps circling back to Thor: The Dark World, which is the movie that no one likes. And I'm like, God, just leave it alone. Let it go. We don't want to go there again. But they won't do it. They're saying, even though you don't like it, we're not going to pretend like things didn't happen in this movie.
Also, before we go further, I do like when Loki goes and talks to Casey. He goes, "I'll gut you like a fish," and Casey goes, "What's a fish?" I don't know why. It's just like the dumb humor just like made me laugh right there. And
he sounded really concerned too.
Yeah, and then like later on when Andy it's just a throwaway line, but you'll see that he said he'll gut me like a fish. Does anyone know what a fish is? Like he's still like telling the story. Like it made this dude's life with what Loki did.
Yeah.
Oh, it's the most interesting thing that's ever happened to him. This guy's probably like multiple millennia years old. And this is like the most eventful day at work he's ever had.
Yeah. Okay, Loki rewinds back to the office and rewinds the film of his life to the point where Frigga is dead. He then finds his future where he and Thor meet Odin, and then further to where he and Thor join forces. Loki then plays the moment of his death when Thanos kills him. The film ends and Loki chuckles. B-15 comes in, asking what's so funny. He attacks B-15 and she easily gets him in an arm hold. Loki uses the remote to remove the collar, put it on her, and rewind her repeatedly so she never touches him. Loki finally rewinds her out of the room. Casey tells 2 Minutemen about his encounter with Loki. B-15 appears in front of them and storms off disgusted. Mobius returns to his office and tells Loki that there is nowhere left for him to run. Loki figures that he can't go back to his timeline and says he doesn't enjoy hurting people, but he does it because he's had to. It's part of the illusion, a desperate ploy for control. Mobius figures that Loki doesn't know himself and says that he doesn't see Loki as a villain. Loki notes that the Tesseract is useless in the TVA, and Mobius says that he can offer Loki something better than salvation. He explains that a variant has been killing their Minutemen, and he needs Loki to stop the variant. When Loki wonders why him, Mobius tells him that the variant they're hunting is Loki. Wow. So, Sean, we have one more scene to talk about, but this was quite the line from Mobius revelation.
So now the Mephisto makes sense because it was the horn. It was devil with horns, but really it was Loki, right? With Loki with the horns. And this is where I feel like Tim's theory could be really interesting because Tim brought up that they're going out and they're destroying these timelines and just wiping them out, right? Like just mass homicide. And then you have this Loki that's going in and taking out these Minutemen. And what if the Loki variant is actually trying to stop these guys from killing these timelines and doing this mass suicide stuff. And now they're trying to recruit this Loki to take out that Loki because they need to put a stop to him to stop them from doing what they're like. Tim's got me thinking about all this crazy shit now.
And I've gone cross-eyed.
Yeah. So Tim, I think you know what I'm saying. Basically, Loki, the time variant. Yeah. So basically what they're saying is the Loki variant that I think they want him to hunt down might be doing what he thinks is right. And so, yeah, Tim feels what I'm saying. But
they're setting him up as the big bad, but really
he's not.
We should be kind of getting behind him if the TV are truly doing what I think they're doing, and that's nuking these timelines.
Yeah, Tim did much better of explaining that. I'm sorry, Andy, I didn't make your head spin. But yeah, it's an interesting twist, and now we understand why they need Loki, and it's to hunt himself down, which I thought was a really neat twist I didn't see coming. So I really like that.
Yeah. All right, Scott, what do you think?
It was like I alluded to it before, but it was heartbreaking. Like seeing Loki getting teary eyed watching.
Man, that was so stupid.
I knew you
wasted way too much time. Way too much time spent on that.
I enjoyed it because like it moves him forward, and I got swinging for the fences again. I don't think that person killing people is Loki. I don't know who it is. I don't think it's
Mephisto.
I don't think it's Mephisto. I don't think it's Loki, because where would this have came from? Which Loki would it have been? It would have to be another timeline that he altered, and they didn't do their job.
I think it's Loki from like episode 5 of this series that we haven't gotten to yet, who decides fuck all you guys and is gonna somehow escape from his handlers, and he's just a little bit further along in this Loki's personal continuity is my thought. We'll get to the departure point, is what I'm thinking.
Okay.
It's only 6 episodes.
I mean, you're
we'll have to get there sooner.
You're probably right. Your batting average on these shows is significantly
I don't know.
better
I
than
think
mine.
it's as shaky as anything, but it just sort of, when I think of the characters and the themes that are being set up, that's kind of what makes the most sense when I try to connect the dots, rather than going down all these different paths of, oh, it's Mephisto, oh, it's Kang, oh, it's this. It's like, I don't know, maybe as complex as time travel can be, this would maybe be a way of trying to keep it somewhat on a leash, a little bit more restrained. But we'll see.
Tim, why don't you give us your thoughts, if you have any more to add here?
Yeah, I mean, not a lot to add on top of my spiel just now. Look, I know Shawn doesn't like these recap scenes of movies we already know very well. I don't really like them either. Those are what I refer to as spousal support scenes. So when you're sitting there watching this with your wife, with your husband, with your boyfriend, girlfriend, and they're like, I want to kill you because you're such a fucking nerd, and I can't believe I guarantee Flash went out with you in the first place. You fucking loser. Can't we just get down to business and fuck already? And you're like, oh, I'll fuck you once Loki's over. Just chill. And they're like, oh my God, have you ever heard of Netflix and chill? Yeah, but this is Disney Plus. No.
And
so just to avoid some of the pain, just to reduce some of the pain that they're feeling and trying to experience these shows that they have no interest in with you, because they love you and want to spend time with you, and all you want to do is watch your goddamn stories, read your comics, and play your video games. That's what that's there for, just so that they don't go on a complete rampage.
I feel like Variant Tim has been in my house.
Yeah, Tim's literally describing my life right now. I feel personally attacked.
Yeah, I'm single, and I know that these things happen.
That's very well done. Yes, very true.
All right, so...
And maybe part of the reason I stay single is just to avoid these types of conflict.
You got Andy on the ropes.
No, I'm fine.
All right.
All right, so we close out the episode.
God, it's been 3 minutes. What, you fuck me already? The show is 50 minutes long. What do you want? It's a premiere.
Okay. In Toledo, Oklahoma, in 1858, a squad of Minutemen appear in a field. There's a sword driven into the ground, and the Minutemen confirm that it is anachronistic. There's oil on the ground. They set a reset charge to prune the timeline. One of them spots the hooded variant a few hundred feet away. He drops a lamp, or they drop a lamp on the ground, and it bursts, igniting the oil. The Minutemen are set on fire and die, and the variant picks up the reset charge, and that's how we close the episode. So, Scott, what's going on here?
Ass whoopings is what's happening, and it was pretty badass because we hadn't seen a lot of action in this scene. The only in this whole episode, actually, the only action we had sort of seen, we had already seen an Endgame. So it was nice to see, like, I'm still not on, if it's episode 5 Loki or or anything. It was nice to see that person whoop ass because they weren't using magic, which has made me think that it's not Loki. So it was basically using like common things, like he set a trap for the Minutemen, took them out and killed them. It seemed pretty savagely, and it made me like pissed off, like, because I was like, damn it, this episode's about to end. And with these Marvel shows, we don't get like next week to hold us over, which thank goodness, because comicbook.com would have 1,500 articles about it. So, what can you do?
Yeah. Well, you also have like all those YouTubers too that do hour-long pieces on 5 seconds of footage. So you got that. We try to just talk. So anyway, Tim, what do you think of the closing scene here?
I'm ready for more. Bring on the next episode. I'm fully intrigued, even though I think I've got some things figured out. There's still plenty of questions left unanswered. What was the doohickey, the MacGuffin that alerted the TVA to this this kind of Western setting that apparently drew them into the trap? Do we think that was anything? I kind of didn't follow all that at the end there.
Yeah, I don't know.
It was some kind of variant that alerted them to the timeline, but yeah. I'm not sure if it was just kind of a red herring planted by, we're assuming, future Loki, or if it was anything like actually important. So I may have to rewatch that scene there.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, I'm into this. I hate that this is a Wednesday drop, just middle of the week. Like I know I'm not going to have time to watch it like in the middle of the week, but I also don't really want to wait because we know the internet being the internet makes that very difficult when you're not quick on the draw. So
yes.
I wish it was a Friday drop that we're used to. It also makes recording the show a little bit difficult.
Yeah, it messes up our schedule.
Disney really fucking me up.
I don't understand what the point of a Wednesday drop really is, because Friday you got everybody's watching it over the weekend. Yeah. It's just a lot of pressure on a Wednesday drop. Shawn, what do you think of the close of this episode?
All right, here's my theory. Since everyone's dropping theories, here's my ShawnKidd.com theory. This is a variant of Loki, but I believe it's a female Loki.
Hey.
Because Loki is gender fluid. And I think that'll be the twist in this, that it is a female version of Loki, not Loki himself.
So she had another true variant.
Yes.
You know, Shawn, they might have tipped their hand with that because they've already came out and said before the show premiered that he's gender fluid. Well,
and that's what's leading me to believe that. And again, I think it's for a broader purpose, not because they just want to go around killing these time variant people or whatever. I think I think there's a good end game for this, and I think that person does it from the right place. So that's my theory on this. Listen, I love the setup, and I could bitch about the 30 minutes of retcon that, to Tim's point, you have to do spout support. But what I love is now we have that all out in the open. We know what the mission is, and we have 5 episodes, and I feel like that's a plot device that they've set up that could play out really good over the next 5 episodes and wrap it up within 5 episodes. You know what I mean? So I like that. I'm in. I thought about this. And I hate time travel, like stupid shows like Legends of Tomorrow. I got a little bit of that vibe. And
shows like Legends.
Yes, I hate that show.
Wow,
so much. But I'm really into this because I think the serial killer premise, him hunting himself premise, there's just so many questions to answer, and I'm into it and I'm digging it.
All right. So we don't know much about what we could see because everything that was in the trailers or previews, for the most part, we've seen now with the end of this episode. So Tim, where do you think we're gonna go? I mean, it's like again, like we talked about this when we did, Falcon and Winter Soldier. Like this is like a sprint. Like this is 6 episodes. How far is the plot or the story going to move forward in the next episode?
I mean, it's going to have to move forward more than incrementally, I would think. To your point, we've only got 6 episodes. Do we know what lengthwise? I mean, this was about a 50-minute, close to an hour long premiere. But are they all going to be that, or are we going to deal with something more in line with, a WandaVision or Falcon Winter Soldier, where it's about 30 minutes? I don't know. I know that Richard E. Grant, great actor, is in an undisclosed role coming up. A lot of people are saying, well, that's future Loki, but I kind of like Sean's theory that future Loki is going to be a lady. That'd be pretty neat. But man, I have no idea. I'm kind of similar to Shawn in that I really hate time travel myself. And the things that I enjoy that feature time travel as a plot device, I think I like them in spite of that plot device. Because it's just, man, I don't like it ever. I don't think it ever makes sense. I think it's easy to poke holes in. I think it's effectively just magic, and it's
overdone.
It's overdone.
Like Phoenix Force and all that stuff you brought up. Time travel's the same way.
It is. It really is. And there's really no way to make it make sense. But this show in the MCU has kind of done the best they can in terms of the execution of a bad concept to me. I mean, I like that this is a show directly engaging with the fact that time travel kind of makes no sense and is kind of fucked up. So that is the way that is just part of the show's DNA. I'm already really into. So, yeah, man, bring it on.
Yeah. Shawn, what do you think we'll see in the next episode?
I don't know, but you know what I like it's a show that's making me question everything I know about what I've seen in the Marvel Universe. I love a good serial killer plot line. I love the fact that Loki's going to be supposedly hunting himself. I mean, there's just so much that they set up in 50 minutes that is just so great that it makes me forget how I feel about the time travel stuff, to Tim's point. Because it is a very common comic book device that they use when they got nothing else better to do. But I feel like, to Tim's point, they set it up the best they could, and they made it something intriguing and something that I want to continue to watch. And I think we're just going to see this play out over the next 5 episodes. And just like all the other Marvel shows, probably this one more than the others, we'll probably get more answers in each episode. Probably more so than WandaVision, and really there wasn't that much to understand. And then the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, it was pretty transparent. So this one's definitely got my interest peaked for sure.
All right. Scott, what do you think we'll see?
The beauty of it is I don't know. Like Shawn said, like that's one thing I love about these shows is like they've all been like a different genre, and this is like the murder mystery, and I'm really digging it, and I hope like it doesn't end with like something stupid, which Marvel isn't the DCEU, so I feel pretty good, but like I'm like super excited for it. I'm pissed off it's on Wednesday, so it really fucks my week up, as I said before. But I know they really just care about my 32-year-old ass who pays $10 a month for Disney Plus. But I think we're gonna see a new character that's prominent. I don't know who it is, but like a big comic book character. I think we're gonna be introduced to one. So I don't know who. Not Mephisto.
Hashtag not Mephisto. All right, so I thought this series started off tremendously. Great first episode, and I can't wait to see what happens. And the best part is that I get to talk to you guys every week and break it down like we do so masterfully. So, thank you everybody out there for listening. For Shawn Kidd, Scott Shifflett, and Tim Capel, I'm Andy Atherton. We'll check you out on the next episode of Pop Goes to the Couch, Loki Season 1. Take care, everybody.